When it comes to the topic of self-improvement, a lot of guys have this black and white mindset where it means completely isolating yourself, just working, going to the gym, not interacting with a single woman. No social life, no hobbies, no hangouts, and that's not what it is. Like, focusing on yourself simply means understanding your priorities at that certain point in time. Just focusing on the areas of your life that need the most growth, the plants or grass that need to be watered the most. And then once you have those priorities in check, you minimize the noise and distractions that takes you away from those priorities. Like, generally speaking, most people should be prioritizing or focusing on about 3-4 core aspects of life at a time. If you try to focus on too much at a single time, you're spreading yourself out too thin. Pause. Sometimes you might have to focus on work a bit more. Sometimes you might have to focus on your health and fitness. Sometimes it might be your relationships or your community or personal growth, or sometimes you might have to focus on your family, a passion project. Like, whatever it is, it's all interchangeable depending on where you are in life. If you're in your 20s to 30s, then work is probably going to be your number one priority. If you're, let's say, in your 30s or 40s or 50s, then family might become your number one priority. If you're in your teens or in your college years, 18 to 22 range, then definitely prioritize your social life. And I actually have a lot of guys in college that email me about this, like, oh, I'm in college, I want to date, but I'm focused on school and I'm afraid that she's going to take away from that. As if that's why you didn't talk to that attractive girl in your business administration class. And I was like, bro, I feel like you know what I'm going to say. You just want to hear me say it. But school can be your number one, and you can make your social life your number two. You can make dating your number two, especially if you're at a point in your life where that's actually a possibility. Like, bro, you're in college, you should be interacting and dating girls every now and then. Obviously focus on what you have to, like, that's where understanding your priorities come into place. But it's like, you don't want to be that guy where you're in your late 20s to 30s and you've never talked to a woman in your life. That's going to be extremely hard to get out of. And the excuse of, oh, but I need to study is cope to not want to put yourself out there. Like, 2/3 of your classes you don't even need. You study the material like 5-7 days before the midterm and final and just lock in. It's like, bro, you're only in college once and you're paying a shit ton to be there, so you might as well make the most of it. Make sure you use it to develop your social life, to have fun, to make it memorable, establish your core group of friends that you're going to have forever and build your communities. But whatever that number one priority is in your life at the moment, never just do that and forget about everything else. It's about understanding where you are in life and realizing what you need the most at that moment, and then minimizing the things that take away from that priority. It's not just work, gym, no girls, no friends, no family, no relationships, no hobbies, etc. And I actually had a guy who recently messaged me on IG about this, and he was like, I'm currently working in Toronto for the summer, and he was talking about how he wanted to talk to girls and go on dates while he was out there, but he was focused on work and how that was taking away most of his time. And he was asking me what he should do, and I was like, bro, there's no way you can't find some time during your entire week to go on dates here and there. You have no idea when you're going to be in Toronto again, let alone for work. Definitely try to find time while you're out there, which you do have, to go on apps, to put yourself out there, to, get you and your buddies from work and go together out on a Friday night. Like, there's no way you can't find any time, especially while you're out there in Canada, because there's a lot of baddies in Canada, let alone Toronto. And I told him this is what I do. I like to date in season, so I'll go like 3-4 months where I don't go on dates or barely interact with a woman, and then I'll spend about 2 to 3 weeks just going on as many dates as I possibly can. I try to get it out of my system. I try to practice my conversation skills, flirting, charm, humor, to make sure that the blades don't get dull. But here's the key point, right? While you're in that period where you're prioritizing work and the gym or whatever you are, you can still make time for things like dating and relationships as long as you don't let it get in the way of those priorities. As long as you're not texting girls on IG all day or on Hinge while you're at work, or you're doing things like skipping days at the gym to go on dates. As long as you have your priorities in check, then everything's good. And I feel like this is the case for a lot of guys where they just isolate themselves from life and focus on 1 or 2 things and then use focusing on themselves as an excuse to not do those other things. And also, by the way, it doesn't take away from as much as you think it does unless you become obsessive about it. Like, for example, going on dates, right? It can actually help you in a lot of different areas of life. Like, it is a skill that you can refine. Like, when you go on dates, there are certain aspects of yourself or your mind that you have to turn on. And then through repetition, it makes you more confident. It forces you to conversate. It forces you to have personality, to be funny, to get your objective. It forces you to exhibit more masculine, more leadership qualities, being more comfortable around people and being more comfortable around women. And you might not realize it, but it does bleed into many areas of your life. Back when I was going on the most amount of dates, which was like the end of 2023, where I was just focused on work and dating the most, and it was before I even made videos consistently. Like, in the back of my mind, I knew I wasn't just going on dates and wasting my time. To me, there was a lot of ROI involved. Like, I was purposely trying to develop my people skills, my conversation skills, my presence. And I knew in the back of my mind that it was going to help me speak better on camera to have more personality, which I knew I was eventually going to do. So when I was going on dates, I wasn't just trying to hook up or get laid or whatever. Obviously that was like, that was a part of it, but I was going on dates to try to get the most out of it that I possibly could. What I cared about the most was building on those intangibles that you only get from experience. And on top of that, I was also collecting and stockpiling a bunch of experiences and stories that I knew I could talk about in future videos. And if somewhere along the lines I found love, then it is what it is, right? That's cool as well, but that wasn't my intention. And also another thing is that the more experiences you have, the more interesting of a person you become, the better conversationalist you become. And I say it all the time, but a part of what makes someone a good conversationalist is just having things to talk about. And this is something that nobody tells you. There's only so many tips and tricks about conversating that'll help you until you get to the point where you have to have things to talk about. And actually, this is relevant to what I'm talking about. The other day I was eating at a Vietnamese restaurant trying to get some pho after a workout at the boxing gym. And I was sitting there at this small table just eating by myself, right? And then next to me about 3 feet away was a couple that was going on their first date. And I wasn't on my phone or anything, so I just kind of ended up unintentionally listening on their entire conversation. And it was like the weirdest thing ever because they were hardly even talking about themselves. It was things like, what's your favorite Marvel movie? Top 3 movies. I like Avengers Endgame. I love listening to The Weeknd, just talking about celebrities and pop culture and, the Sydney Sweeney thing on TikTok. Just kind of the most base normie conversations. And there was a few awkward silences, a few topics around traveling, but in general, I was like, damn, some people really don't have much to talk about. And again, quick side note for you guys, all the conversation tips and tricks and controlling the flow and topics and flirting, none of that is going to help you. Like, you're going to come to a dead end if you don't have anything to talk about or share about. That's why if you're young, the best thing you can do is seek out experiences. Go on that solo trip, go try something that you've never done before, go be a part of your rec league, go be a part of your community. Go and get your ass kicked at an MMA gym, go and start that YouTube channel, go start that internship, go join that club, go shadow for that career that you want. When you put yourself out there to seek experiences, you're going to become not only a better conversationalist, but a better person in general. Like, it's going to help you develop in all areas of your life. And this is actually something that I've seen a lot growing up just because I grew up in a relatively Asian community. There was a lot of first generation Asian Americans. Generally pretty smart, good students, good academically. Ends up getting decent jobs, 6-figure jobs, but also ends up very socially inept. Like, they've kind of just stayed in their shell their entire lives, can't really talk to women, can't really talk to people, gaming, Discord, Reddit. I mean, if that's your prerogative, it is what it is. But you gotta develop all areas of your life. And the best thing about that is that it coincides with each other. Like, that's actually the best thing about self-improvement is that it translates to all areas of your life. And this is how you become the best version of yourself. This is how you become a 360-degree individual. Being competent in many different areas of your life is what breeds true confidence. As a matter of fact, going on dates can actually help you land the job that you want because a date is really no different than an interview if you think about it. Like, when you go on dates, right, you gotta mentally prepare yourself. You gotta dress up for the occasion. You have to charm, you have to flirt, you got to present yourself and all your credentials that you're qualifying to in both situations to get the desired outcome that you want. It's just that in one situation, you're trying to get a job and the other situation, you're trying to get laid. And that's a perfect example of how it can bleed into other areas of your life. A lot of people might think that there's nothing related when it comes to dating or work, but it actually can help you. Like, there's always going to be a benefit every time you push yourself outside of yourself, every time you do something new or every time you do a new challenge. So yeah, focusing on yourself doesn't have to mean doing 1 or 2 things and then eliminating everything else in your life, just completely isolating yourself. It's really just having the awareness and understanding to where you are in life and then lining up your priorities accordingly to what you need the most at that certain point in time in your life. And by the way, sometimes you might have to slow down on going on dates and hanging out with girls, right? Sometimes you might be working too much. Maybe you need to take that week vacation. Sometimes you might have to slow down on going to the gym and working out because you're injuring yourself. I got a friend right now who's suffering from a lot of injuries from working out too hard. Sometimes you might have to slow down on hanging out with your friends because you're being unproductive, right? You're smoking too much, you're getting lit, you're going to parties, and you're wasting a lot of time. Again, it's really just understanding what you need the most at that point in time in your life and then prioritizing those aspects accordingly. That's really what focusing on yourself means. It does not mean go isolate yourself in a cave somewhere. Anyways, hopefully you guys got some from that. Make sure you stay true. Talk to you guys real soon, and I'll see you at the top. Peace.